welcome back. It's Louisa Munson from Feel Good Astrology. I had to think about that then. So how are you doing? How are you all? This is the Feel Good Astrology Sunday show where I take a look at your charts. Now, I've got 3 people already lined up that I want to look at the charts of. And offer a bit of help or some advice based on what I see in their charts. But before I go there, let's just welcome in whoever's in the chat room. I'd love to do that. I'm always. Oh, come on in.
Where's your graphics?
What graphics?
Or on your screen? Do you not have them on this one?
No.
Oh, beg your pardon.
I'm live.
Hello, everyone.
So, gosh, I thought Mr. M had something really important to share with me then. Like my coffee that's due. Anyway, so we've got Penny Albertella. That is one of the people whose charts I'm looking at. But Penny is also somebody who checks in quite regularly to say hello. She's part of the Feel Good Astrology family. So hi, Penny. Welcome back. I've also got Jackie Grant waving a pink hand. I'm waving a pink hand back at you. And we've also got BB Jones from America joining us in today. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much. Before we do get going, I just want to share a couple of funny things that have been happening recently. And it kind of fits in with what happens at the time of the new moon. So earlier, we saw the new moon and it's the new moon in the sign of Gemini, right at the tail end of Gemini. Actually, it's completely in opposition to my sun, this new moon. But the new moon, it represents new starts, and now we're into the new growth phase. So this is the new waxing phase of the moon. It's a great time over the next few days to start planting things out or sowing seeds and things like that. If you've got a new project you want to start, it's a really good time to do it. And all themes to do with Gemini, for instance, community-based stuff, information, the sharing of clues of things, lots of facts are really important. It's very much about learning, lots and lots of thank you very much. Got there in the end. That's great. Thanks, Carl. And it's also about friendship, and it's about being a communard. It's about companionship and things like that. So there's some really lovely themes with Gemini. It's traditionally the third house of the if you're looking at a chart, and I'll show you where Gemini is in all of your charts, but the third house represents all things to do with our early environments. So for instance, the environment that is known to us, the environment that we grew up in, the schools that we went to that taught us the sort of ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. So it's very much about facts and features, and the nuts and bolts of learning, and also, what it's like to connect with people. So that's why one of the things I've chosen to do today is actually launch a new community of my own. Now, it's in its infancy. It's, it's literally got its logo and a hello, and I've shared a video. But basically, I realized over the last few years that I've been very cagey about revealing as much as I'd like to in terms of what I'm seeing astrologically, and so I do hold myself back a little bit on YouTube, believe it or not, and also on Facebook and Twitter, because over the years, over the most recent times, I've been shadow banned. I've had people fact checker things and all stuff like that, and so I found a lovely community space called school.com, and it offers you a space, and it's ad free. So it's not going to try and sell to you. I might, but there's not going to be anything else there trying to sell to you. And it's fact checker free. So it's uncensored, and it'll be supervised. I'll be supervising it. So I like to think it's a safe space where people can really chat about astrology, chat about how we can evolve using astrology, how we can help serve ourselves and serve each other and help each other, and just really it's about self-discovery. And I'm hoping that it's a safe place where we can really be open. And so what I've chosen to do is a lot of my material is going to go to YouTube. However, my extra special stuff I'm going to just put in this community space. So if you want to hear really what I think is going on a little bit more than I already share, then please do. I will give a link. I'm hoping maybe Carl, who is showing up in the chat room as Iberian FM phone in, I'm hoping maybe Carl can put a link in for me. I will put a link in, or I will put it in the show notes after. So there you have it. We've also got Tim Freestone there. Hello, you all. Tim, where are you joining us from today? I'd love to know. Welcome aboard. So that's the first thing. The Gemini new moon is all about information, but there's some funny things that have happened, and I'm going to show you this chart for Gemini, the Gemini new moon, because you can see the moon and the sun here together. Now, it's got a couple of aspects that are one in particular that's very, very strong, and that's in a square to Neptune. Now, Neptune has been in the sign of Pisces for such a long time. I can't even care to remember how long it's been there. It's been there for ages. But Neptune is a planet about creativity, and I'm sure it's going to come up today, because I always find that we get people apply to be here, and they often they've got similar themes going on. There's always something that connects them, something for them to watch out for. But anyway, Neptune, I think, is an interesting planet. It's subtle. Its energies are really, really subtle. It's very creative. It's very much about how we might lose ourselves. And I think its highest expression is we lose ourselves by like letting go of our identity in when we might become part of the collective. We absolutely awaken to something that maybe life is much bigger than what we see, and that we're all connected, and that everyone's our brother and our sister. I see that as being a very exalted aspect of Neptune when it's really expressing itself in your chart, and its highest expression. And then its lowest expression, like, how can I lose myself? Well, we let go of our identity. We try and forget who we are. So drink, drugs, alcohol, that is drink, actually. Alcohol, drugs, maybe, distracting sexual practices, anything, in fact, that will help us forget who we are and kind of titillate us. And if it's, Neptune's all about creativity. And so you've got the sort of lurid kind of, it can take you down some dark paths if you take creativity from its lowest point. But if you think of creativity and how it can really rise us up and awaken us, it can lead to really ecstatic experiences. And so it's very mystical, and it's very much known for its for being mystical and very spiritual. I also think of it as a higher harmonic of Venus. So it is like a higher harmonic of love. And one of the things, and I'm sure you've all experienced this at some point, is that we have this experience where we have a moment where we kind of transcend our life a little bit, just maybe a glimpse of it. For those lucky enough to live in that state quite a lot of the time, my thumbs up to you. But that sort of transcendent state where all of a sudden everything is just like love is everywhere. That's a beautiful state to be in. But if ever we rise into love and experience that place of complete safety where we absolutely are in love, we know we're loved and everything's great, what often happens, this is what my experience, I'd be interested to hear if it's the same experience for you guys, but I noticed that the muck, anything that I haven't attended to, anywhere I've had shame or blame or guilt or anger, comes up. So for instance, like and I'm sure my husband won't mind me sharing this, but if we have a beautiful lovemaking experience where we feel very, very connected, you can bet your bottom dollar the next day there's an argument or some kind of dis-ease. It brings up something in us. It's like a medicine. It's healing, and it's like a healing crisis, and something needs to come out. So Neptune is a really funny planet. So anyway, it's also known as a deceiver because creativity and love, and it's quite ethereal, and Neptune is also the ruler of the ocean. How can you pinpoint anything in an ocean? It's just a drop in the ocean, and you can't really see into the depths of Neptune, because you can maybe see as far as your arm when you're in the ocean. It's most of it is in darkness, which is a bit like consciousness. Where we shine our light and where we focus our attention is what we notice. And so there's a lot that we can't attend to, but we can sense. And so Neptune is also known as being nebulous. And over the last couple of days, Carl and I have heard about the possibility that we might have been hacked, or he has possibly been hacked. Somebody's been messaging people through his Facebook, and it's not him. And it's really, like false identity is very much a Neptune thing. So the sun represents our identity. Neptune can show what is false, or where we might be lying to ourselves. And then the moon is very much about our feelings as well, and our trust and our innocence. And so these two are in a square. And it's really funny because last night, just before the sun and moon came together, I saw something on my YouTube channel. It was a short, and I knew I hadn't done it. And when I played it, there was a video of me that I've never put out in the public domain. It was just something that I did on my phone and left it at that. And it had some really wild and angry kind of crash music with screaming in the background, and then somebody saying, shut the bleep up. And it seemed really aggressive. And then it had yo written in green writing on my forehead. And I thought, oh my goodness, someone's hacked my account. And I couldn't work out how that may well have happened. And anyway, suffice to say, this morning I was showing my elder son, I unlisted it from my channel, and my elder son said, I recognize that music. It's a well-known meme that's used in kids' shorts. And so he said, I wonder. And I went to my YouTube on my phone, and I didn't realize just how easy it is to create a short. And I've got a 4-year-old that uses my phone quite a bit. And we spoke to him and just said, have you been playing a game? Have you been creative? Because he loves putting things together. And he did it himself. In about 4 clicks, he created a short that looked like I'd been hacked. And that's just the kind of thing that you might get with the energy of Neptune, like impersonators, confusion, worrying, like an invisible enemy, when it seems to be pitted against your personality and also your feelings and that sense of trust. It feels like something's been broken. So it really kind of made me chuckle. It's quite a good illustration of how things can go wrong. So I wonder, what's been going on for you guys as well. Have you had any kind of mistaken identity, or really sort of being fooled by something? It's quite a funny emphasis. So we got Tim Freestone is saying he's from Texas. So that's really cool. I've got a lot of clients in Texas, actually, Tim. So it's very nice to meet you. Nubianette, who is from America and who's actually in Portugal, where I'm recording from, is saying, hola, boa noite. That's hello. Good evening. Heading out soon, but checking out what's going on for a bit. Welcome. Thank you. And Penny's saying, 4-year-old. What a clever boy. Do you know what? I'm absolutely really proud of him, actually. I know people can be a little bit funny about technology, but I think kids are growing up in a technological age, and tell you what, my son's got it going on. So anyway, let's have a look actually at the first chart now. And that is, let's see which one comes up first. This is for Mary Mayer. Now, I haven't been in contact with Mary since Mary asked if I could do this. We confirmed that it would be on this show. And she was like, great. But I don't know what Mary wants to know about. So I'm just going to bring up her chart and just let her know what I see. Now, interestingly, we've got the sun and the moon here in the new moon position, right at the end of Gemini. So it's interesting that she asks that she's interested in me sort of having a look at her chart right now, because the new moon is happening very, very close to her Mars, and right over a point of fortune. It's in the 10th house, which is all about how we stand in the world, what are we revealing to the world about us, what our public profile is. It's about our career, recognition, appreciation. It also shows the most dominant parent, in my opinion. Not all astrologers agree with that, but I really think it shows our early templates for what it is to be an assertive adult, how to stand strong and show yourself to the world. It's very much about your outer face, not so much when you're in your house, but the moment you step out of the house and into the real world, you step into the 10th house pretty much. So I'm just looking around her chart to see if she's got anything else around 26, 27, 28 degrees. I can see her Uranus here is at 24 degrees in the sign of Leo. Her Juno is 28 degrees in the sign of Capricorn. She's got Pluto right on that at the moment. I'll comment on that in a sec. And her Sun is at 2 degrees in the sign of Aquarius. So Pluto's on that. That's something that might have kind of brought it to her attention to be featured. She's also got Chiron and Vesta at 0 degrees in the sign of Pisces, which also, so, we've got this crossover point here between 26, 27, 28, 29, and then it goes to 0 as it goes into the next sign. And her moon is at 26 degrees in the sign of Aries. So there's a lot of vibration with the ending of one sign and the beginning of another. And so as I'm looking at this, I would say that the new moon is highlighting the area of her chart to do with achievement and what she's here for, her sense of purpose. Destiny is a word that definitely comes up with the 10th house, which is this section here. It's awakening things for her. This is a really good time for her to launch something that could have a greater sense of, lead to a greater sense of recognition or achievement. It might be a time when she's summing up things and feeling quite good. Now, given that it's connecting to her part fortune and also Mars, it should really give her a greater sense of her own power, even though her Mars is retrograde at birth. So it might not always be very easy for her to step into her power. And also Mars is in the sign of Cancer, which I don't think it's a very clean sign for Mars to be highlighted in. I think, Mars in the sign of Cancer, when anger does come up, it can come up in a kind of passive aggressive kind of way, and especially with the retrograde, it feels like she can't be very clear about how she stands for herself. And so having the sun and moon here is probably going to make her feel a little bit emotional, because the moon going over Mars tends to rile us up. And right now the moon will have crossed this point already, because the moon moves quite fast. And the sun will be over this point from Wednesday, when we have the solstice. So it's quite an important time for her. The solstice, as it comes in, which, like I said, starts on the 21st. It's the time of year for Mary when her attention is very much focused on how she's perceived in the world and how successful she feels as a person. Just want to check her age. So she's born in 1961. And so she's 62, if I've calculated that right. So I'm hoping she's already achieved quite a few things to feel quite competent and successful in her own way. I'm guessing, she's had her second Saturn return, that there's her Saturn and there's Saturn now. So it's done 2 laps of the zodiac and a little bit more in her 62 years of life. Roughly 58, 59 years, that's when we have our second Saturn return. So she should have already gone through quite enough to have learnt lots of lessons. So I would imagine that she's already feeling quite sure of who she is. Now, that said, she's also got Pluto coming into a conjunction with her sun, and it got close to it earlier this year when Pluto went into the sign of Aquarius. It's been close to it for a while. For the last couple of years, it's been really coming in. And I would say from January, when Pluto goes into the sign of Aquarius, the emphasis on change and transformation and who am I really is going to get stronger in Mary. Now, I don't know anything about Mary. The 5th house is very much about children, and also how creative we are. The 5th house is the place where we are deeply creative, and we have this kind of soul urge to birth things. Now, those things that we're birthing could be actual children, because that's like one of the most creative acts any of us can do, really, isn't it? To create a real human. And then raising them is also an act of deep creativity. But then there's people who, work with their hands, who are musical, creative, artistic, and all sorts of different things. Gardening, cooking, writing. A lot of business owners have a lot of things in the 5th house. They're always thinking about their sense of purpose and destiny in terms of, what am I putting out there at the moment? The 5th house is also very much about new early flushes of romance, and it's quite a sensual place because, again, like the act of sensuality is one of the most creative acts as well. So it's playful, it can be innocent, and she's got her son there, she's got her Juno there. Juno is a character, she's a goddess, she's known as the goddess of marriage. She was married to Jupiter, according to whether you're Roman or Greek, but she's a brilliant goddess. Funnily enough, Juno is right now in a conjunction with the sun, so there's some resonance with how things are right now. So I would say that Mary's creativity comes up more when she's committed and dedicated to things, because Juno is she dedicates herself to things. She feels a sense of certainty, and she's the lover. She weds herself to what she does. Saturn is also there. Now, Saturn is it's not always a very easy planet to work with. Saturn can show where we have repeated difficulties to express ourselves or difficulties to settle. Saturn shows where we get imprisoned through trying to interpret our life, really. And Saturn can show authoritarian people around us, or where we find our own authority. So I think probably one of the things that happens for Mary quite frequently is she becomes an authority through her creativity. So she gets very good at it. She gets very grounded at it. And of course, one of the problems with that is you can get a bit repetitive with your creativity. It becomes a formula, and then some of the pleasure goes from it, which is quite, unhelpful. And she's also wedded to her creativity. Now, again, like if her creativity are her children, which I'm guessing if she's 62 now, her kids could very well be quite grown up and not need her so much. Sometimes when Pluto or an outer planet goes through the fifth house, it can show where our children bring us problems and bring us a huge change in consciousness. And from the things that are going on for them, it shows where we change as a result. But Pluto coming into an alignment with her son, I think, is also an indication that what she puts out into the world could be, she might be guarding it a bit too carefully. She might not want to share her gifts. She might have a difficulty sharing what she's about at the moment. There almost might be a jealousy about it, and a power, a need to hold on to what she does, because when you put your creativity in the world, everybody else wants to react to it. A bit like, when you have a baby and it's your baby, everyone else wants a piece of it. Everyone else, sorry, that sounds a bit weird, but like everybody else wants to have an opinion as to how you should raise your child, and it's your creation. So a bit like that new mum or new dad feeling, that may well come up about what she's guarding at the moment in terms of what has birthed through her. So given that the new moon is happening up here in the 10th house, and it might help her come forwards, I would also think that she may well have a bit of freedom around what she's birthing. She might have a bit of a brainwave and find a new way of doing things. Now, like I said, this can also show an area of early romance and sensuality. Having Saturn here and then Pluto in this place right now too, can bring up quite a lot of jealousy. Juno can be quite a jealous goddess. Although she's a goddess of marriage and stuff, woe betide anyone that tries to encroach on what is naturally hers, and her boundaries. So there's that going on again. Other things I really like, and I think are triggered by this new moon. So other influences that Mary might enjoy, I think, is there's a lot of healing going on. So this is a healing moon for her. Chiron here and Vesta. She really absolutely, and this is in the sixth house, which is where we get ill, and also where we, how we are on a day-to-day basis. So the sixth house with Chiron, the standard Monday to Friday kind of lifestyle may not suit her, may never have suited her. She may have also had lots of questions about the narrative of what is going on in the world, and it's caused her pain, or trying to live a normal life has created illness in her, because there's a dis-ease, a fundamental kind of thinking, is this really what it's about? And hers is also, her dis-ease and early wounds are very much about the truth of all things. Vesta is the truth that we see and the truth that we feel. So this new moon, whatever's going on for her right now, is opening her to becoming more truthful about what she needs and to find a flow of energy. I think her creativity really could come from the feeling of healing. Uranus here is acting on this in quite a speedy way, helping to facilitate change. The moon is also showing we could change quite quickly. With this new moon, it's bringing quite a lot of impetus and an emotional buy-in. So and also the sun down here, which is in quincunx to it. It's all showing that there is a new phase that Mary is going into. So that's just a quick look at your chart, Mary. There's other things that I could comment on, but these are the things that really stand out the most. I would say in recent times, really since March, when Saturn went into the sign of Pisces, probably towards the end of end of January to sort of mid March and a little bit beyond that, you probably felt quite a lot of the revisiting of old woundings or illnesses, or felt the difficulty of not being able to live your truth, and that normally comes up as having low energy. When Saturn goes over one of these sensitive areas, Saturn's going retrograde now, is heading back towards that. So whatever was going on for you around the end of March, if it was an illness, watch out for it. Get your immune system much stronger, get your belief in that's more important, I think, in my mind. Get your belief in your immune system stronger, because Saturn's coming back. And then when he starts moving forwards again, he's going to zoom very quickly to Ceres, and that's about the mum. So if your mum's still with us, it could bring some heaviness around her, and how you manage her. But if you are a mum, it could be that you as a mum feels a bit heavy. So to me, it feels like there is maybe some generational healing that's going on, or an issue that is coming up between mums and daughters. Like Saturn is sometimes the father, and this Ceres is the mum. So it could also be a bit of a, mum and dad are coming together, but it feels a little uncomfortable because mums do it one way and dads do it another. So there is a feeling that there's more responsibility, and it could be quite a heavy responsibility in terms of who you are responsible for and who you're nurturing. So really boost yourself up, get yourself really strong. You'll get through it. Thankfully, Saturn transits don't last too long. And they're there really just to remind us where we've overextended and what we might need to cut back at. And then really use this time to set your ideas free. So I hope that's helpful, Mary. I'm just going to go to the chat room and see if Mary actually is there. I don't know if she is. But we've got some other people joining us. We've got Colleen Murphy from the US. Hi, Colleen. Welcome. We've got Good Morning Portugal. That's my husband. Not sure if I can post Mrs. M. That's me. Mrs. M's link. Have sent to your messenger and WhatsApp for you to cut and paste. Okay, thank you very much. That's brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to move on to, I will do that. Let's move on to the next chart. And the next chart is Penny's chart. Now, I've seen Penny's chart before a couple of times, and I like it a lot. Oh, and look, look what we've got here. At 28 degrees. I was talking. So if we think about what I've spoken about so far, I've been talking about planets at 28 degrees, and I've been talking about our personal identity in terms of this morning's new moon, was challenging our ideas on us as an individual, and that Neptune might show us a little bit of where things are a bit false and where things might be coming through. And I was just talking about motherhood and, our responsibilities as mums and things. And so this is kind of fascinating to me that I'm looking at Penny's chart, the same day as the same day of the new moon, where the moon and sun are together around 27 degrees. Her moon is at 28 degrees in a conjunction with Ceres, which is the mum principle. And as you can see in Penny's chart, the sun and Ceres are so close together. And Penny doesn't have a square to Neptune like the new moon does, but she does have a square to Pluto, which is at 27 degrees. and, and this is quite tough as well, a square to Lilith. Now, I don't often put Lilith into charts, but it's there. Must have been in my settings. And I'm not sure if I've actually looked at Lilith in terms of Penny's chart before. So it's there. It's there for a reason. It's worth looking at. So that is very resonant with the time that I'm looking at Penny's chart. I also just want to give it a quick look over to see if there's anything that seems important to mention to Penny. Okay, so yeah. One thing that I think, even though Penny's Sun and Neptune aren't in a square, like in the new moon of today, Penny's Sun is in an aspect with Neptune, which is at 0 degrees. So that also follows the pattern of 26, 27, 28, 29, and 0 degrees. They're all within that tight little bandwidth of 5 degrees. So this is interesting. Penny's got some big themes. And I just want to explore this just briefly in case something comes out that's quite helpful for Penny in terms of children, in terms of being a mum. Now, this is the 5th house, which represents our children and also our creativity. Now, I happen to know that Penny is deeply creative and she's deeply nurturing. And I just want to see if Penny's okay for me to reveal her career. Are you okay with that, Penny? I'll just wait for a response. And I'll come back to it in a minute. But she's very, very creative and very nurturing. Now, she's got Chiron in the 5th, showing like Chiron is about wounds and healing. And so she's very creative about healing. She's got a really good understanding about how healing can work hand in hand with creativity. And it's almost a blessing and a curse. Like if she doesn't do it, I think she probably gets ill. And then when she does do it, it releases stuff. She's got a very, very sort of creative way of looking at it. And her Uranus is in the sign of Aquarius, which is quite unusual, very unusual. And the sign of Aquarius is, I think, very much about consciousness, as well as being quite unusual and quite unique and like going to the beat of their own drum. They are trendsetters, I think, people with a very strong sort of Aquarian, because they decide what they're going to wear. And then all of a sudden people are like, wow, they're really cool. They've got their own style. I'm going to follow them. So Penny's got this kind of cool quirkiness about her, and it's quite healing. It allows her maybe to be her true self. And so I think when she's reining herself in, it's very difficult for her to really feel like she is her true self. She's also got Lilith there. Now, Lilith is an archetype of, she's the female that was repressed. So I think every woman will have recognized this in themselves, where they feel like they can't be a strong woman, because if you're a strong woman, people might not like you. Like your parents, you probably learned from your parents early on. It's only in probably the last generation or two that mums and dads might encourage their girls to be as strong as men and not penalize it in any way. But like I'm a Gen Xer, and in my lifetime, my parents were like, yeah, you can do everything. And also I would hear this contra narrative, because they were still in the consciousness that women maybe do need some extra help. Like men are stronger, physically stronger. Women can be as strong. But like, in recent times, we've seen in competitive sports where men identifying as women have outperformed women, natural women in the same race, in the same sports. And it's really, really clear that there is a difference. And we can talk about how it's the same thing. And to me, it feels like people are trying to convince me that the sky is pink and not blue. There are some fundamental differences. And I think we can also learn to not be an arsehole about it. So we can recognize the differences, and we can also encourage and foster a unity. But we shouldn't, push our thoughts and feelings on people necessarily. Now, Lilith, as it comes into this, it shows us where we've repressed ourselves. And there's something about being a strong woman or being a creative woman, or being a brilliant woman, being smart, being this, being that. And Lilith is actually really super smart, really articulate, knows what her truth is, and she gets thrown out. It's a bit like the Adam and Eve story. It's that shame is put on the woman, but actually, I think, in fact, I was having a conversation with somebody today. There's always something going on in a family. There's issues everywhere. If you're not in a family, it'll be in a work situation, in a group of friends. There's always someone that's acting out or who's slightly different. And they are like the lightning rod for the whole group. And everything that the group can't admit about themselves, can't collectively own about their shadow, is put onto the weird one or the different one. And so Lilith shows where we become a bit of a victim, and also B, where we repress ourselves, because ultimately the only one that can really repress us is ourselves. And we might have to do it for safety, or we might just do it because it's easier. But it has a cost. And even though I've likened it to the chastened woman, the woman who has to hide a little bit, hide under a shadow, and she's resentful, she's rightly resentful. This archetype is in everyone's chart, just like Pluto, which is very masculine and control based, is in every girl's chart. So this is also speaking to every man out there that has hidden, because there is this as well. People talk about, or it's been spoken about a lot, toxic masculinity, where the whole idea that a man could be strong and actually celebrate being a man is demeaned by modern society. It's linked into being a thug or not being very intelligent or this, that, and the other. Frankly, I think anyone that uses their body in, uses their natural strength and beauty and flexibility and their brains in the most perfect way they are, I think they're brilliant people. And so it goes across sexes, or genders, sorry. But it's like the shame of being ourselves, that we have to hide it. And Lilith comes up, she gets quite angry about it, and she starts to acknowledge that she doesn't want to carry the shadow of shame for everyone else. And so she can be quite an angry character. It's interesting that Penny's got Chiron and Lilith in her 5th house. So at some level, maybe she became very creative and worked in the jobs that she's done. And I'll see if I can reveal that. Yes, that's fine. That's great. I've got her permission. So Penny is a beautiful jeweler and designer, and she's also a very talented and effective hypnotherapist and coach. And add in some extra bits, Penny, if I've left anything out. So you can see through the design, which is a very much a 5th house thing, or creativity, and then the healing work, using hypnotherapy to help people through things. So I would imagine that Penny has used her creativity and her brilliance to be able to it was the acceptable way for her to be smart. It was the acceptable way for her to know that she was a strong woman and that she had something to give without upsetting people. Like, she needed the term healer to be able to do what she was doing, rather than show that she was just naturally awesome. So these are big themes. Now, her Lilith, like the 5th house is also about our kids, and it can show that, with Chiron there, that the kids can create some pain, and that she's had to hold back a little bit with her children. But the great news is Saturn's already kind of moved away from this area largely. He's been going through it, showing that over the last couple of years there's probably been quite a lot of stuff churning around about children and her responsibility, and how much of it was down to what she's done, and how much not, and the good news is Saturn's moving away. However, this is right on the cusp between Aquarius and Pisces. So Saturn is coming back to close to Lilith, but not going to touch it again. So you might be reminded of some of the earlier pain that you've experienced, Penny, in terms of where you felt suppressed in being a mum, or finding a resolution when it feels like all things are hidden and there's resentments. You can't quite be open about the situation that you find yourself in, and that you'd like to open up about it without feeling any shame or anger. So whatever was going around February, March time around that, it's likely to come back a little bit. but not fully express itself. So what I would do if I was in your shoes is, if you can cast your mind back to what was going on for you then, and maybe write some words or whatever works for you, draw some pictures about it or something, or meditate or whatever, and then start recognize, because you've got the skills to do that, recognize what insecurity program you are playing on yourself. What script have you got that's playing that allows you to be hidden, that allows that resentment about how you've been treated to build, and look for where it's existed in your life, so that you can let it go, so that as Saturn gets closer to this point, that you have that sense of release. Now I just want to find my ephemeris, one sec, because I'm going to find when it's at its closest to Lilith, and then I just want to finish off because a couple more comments I want to share with you. Okay, so I've got my trusty ephemeris here. So Saturn's heading back, and if Mary is listening, Saturn gets back to 0 degrees in the sign of Pisces, pretty much right the way through October, and then November it starts to turn around, and Saturn starts moving forwards again. And then it's just going to get easier for you, Penny. So around the 2nd of November is at its tightest, and then it starts to get easier. So I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's just like whatever has come up is likely to come back a little bit in your mind. Now, other things that are going on, and this is what I'm really loving for you. And I know I've spoken about this already, but Uranus, the planet of change and consciousness and individuality, is also the ruler, or one of the rulers of Uranus. Saturn's the other. But Uranus is in her 8th at the moment, which could really clear a lot of family karma. And the 8th house is all about the family and the family karma and the tendencies. It's very much about all of life's transitions. All of life lives here, including blame, shame, guilt, and anger, which is very much a Lilith thing here. And Uranus is currently at, let me just see. Uranus is currently at 20 degrees in the sign of Taurus, and just want to see how close it's going to get. By August, it's really within range of the Sun and Ceres. So August time, it's at its closest, and so that's bringing about a life change, a kind of freedom, actually, Penny, in terms of how you feel about yourself. It's like you're letting yourself go, you're letting yourself off the hook, you're freeing yourself. There's a liberation for you, and then Uranus goes retrograde. And then starts moving forwards again from January. And then by April, it's in this really quite dynamic position, around 21, 22 degrees. So Jupiter and Uranus are going to be here, and it will be in a trine to your Jupiter. It's going to be really fortunate for you, I think. The 12th house, which is about our unconscious scripts, and you've got Jupiter here, which is hilarious given that you're a hypnotherapist, because it allows you to expand through unconscious scripts. I really see that you are doing some work on yourself in quite a big way. I really see that whatever's been ailing you in terms of being the true expression of who you are, by August, you're really getting a breakthrough on that. And then by April of next year, it feels like there's a massive step forwards, and so much more liberation for you. So they're the most obvious things I want to share with you that I know we haven't already obviously spoken about. Also, the last thing, the new moon is going through the 9th house. So it's emphasizing your desire for higher knowledge and a higher understanding, an opening, and a big adventure. So all of this, even though it might be reminding you of stuff in the past that's quite painful, this is all here as a springboard for a big opening for you. So I really hope that's helpful for you, Penny. And let's see, you've already shared something with me. You said, I felt I've been wearing a cloak a lot in my life. Oh my goodness. Decided to be unapologetically me. In fact, got my hands tattooed on Friday to openly be me. Oh my goodness. I'd love to see a photo of those, Penny. Wow. How are your hands now? Are they feeling healed? Wow. So that really does fit in with what you shared, that you've been feeling like you've been under a cloak. I mean, this is the time to be unapologetically you. Absolutely, Penny. So I'm so pleased for you. It's amazing. Well done. And thanks for sharing that. It's so funny that that's where I decided to go. So that's wonderful. I really do think it's going to be easy. You know, like loads of healers, you know, or people on a healing journey that are talking about stuff like this. You know, we all think that there's this moment that we're going to get to where we realize it's all going to be done. Like all of a sudden you'll get to that first point that caused all that pain, and everything else will unravel. And it's almost like this hero's journey, and it's also like an impossible dream. And each time we think we've cracked it, a bit like, you know, when you're a new parent and you just get into the rhythms of your new baby and you think you've cracked it and that you're a great parent, that you're in sync with them, and then the baby changes their mind the next day and they've got a new pattern, and it's like, oh, and it's the same actually for life. It's quite a good analogy for life actually, you know, where you just think you're getting on with money, you're just earning a little bit, and then the washing machine breaks down, or you know, there's some big bill comes in, it's like, I'm just on this treadmill. But I actually do feel, Penny, that you have got this moment of really feeling like you're freeing yourself from the weight of that heavy old cloak. So thank you so much for sharing that. Right, last one then, and by no means least, I'm going to be sharing this chart. And I've never seen this chart before, but instantly there's some similarities between this person and I. We've both got Sagittarius sun, and we've both got Pisces moon. And this is somebody who's in the chat room as BB Jones. So hi, BB. Nice to be looking at your chart, having seen your posts on Facebook for so many years. So I've got a little bit of background info now, and there's a lot there, and I've not worked with BB before. So what I really want to focus on is how BB can feel a renewed sense of self-esteem, and also how to feel like she can recover any health. What I can share is that around the age of 47, BB started to get into ill health, started to sicken, and you know, with a long-term illness. She's now 71. That's a long time to be quite poorly. And it just almost feels like it's a bit imprisoning. So I just want to see how I can really help BB feel more that life is there to nurture her and not to disable her. So when I look at her chart now, interestingly, ill health can really show up in the chart. Now, do you remember when I was looking at Penny's chart and Mary's chart? No, it was Mary's chart, I think, when I said she had Chiron in her 6th house, and which is this bit here. And I said the 6th house is often where illness shows up, and it shows our day-to-day managing of life. Because obviously, you know, if you're sick, it shows up in that part of your chart about managing your life on a daily basis. It's very difficult to manage your life if it's really difficult to manage your energy, or to manage your body, or to feel at ease in your body. And isn't that just the greatest gift? I missed a couple of shows because I had tonsillitis, and I was quite poorly for 10 solid days, in particular 6 really acute days. And the relief that came when the pain disappeared, was immense. And that was just for 6 days. So, my heart goes out to anyone that lives in continuous pain, absolutely, or can't manage their life. I'm still playing catch up, a week and a half later. So instantly you'll see that this area here, the 6th house, is full of planets. And they're not just like light ones, they're quite difficult ones. So we've got Mars here, which is about our vitality and our strength. We've also got Saturn here, which shows what holds us back and where we might be a bit imprisoned and what we might struggle with. We've got Neptune here, which, like I said earlier, right at the start, is very difficult to interpret because it's quite nebulous, and it really shows us our sensitivities, how we want to lose ourselves a little bit. And Neptune, I notice in the charts of people, if it's really strong, it shows up in the charts of people with things like what are they called? It's like a collective name for things that doctors can't manage. What is it? Autoimmune disorder. It gets it every time. It gets lumped into that category. And I would put allergies there. Food allergies, allergies to energy waves, signals, electricity. It's almost like an allergy to everything that's not natural, an allergy to everything that is somehow not being itself. Remember right at the start, I was talking about how Neptune is a deceiver. And she's also got Venus. And isn't this nice that she's got this lovely Venus and Neptune, which is also the higher harmonic of love? And if you remember at the start, I said, when you experience a higher harmonic of love, it can bring up a lot of the terrible aspects, like if I make love to Mr. M, the next day, after an exalted moment, we may well notice a bit of dis-ease coming up in us because our bodies know it's safe to let go of the stuff. We're safe and we're loved and we're held. So, BB is a deep romantic. She is somebody who's deeply romantic with her Venus and her Neptune together. Neptune and Venus together, or in aspect, can also show where we have impossible loves or deeply romantic loves that they're almost not real. They're almost existing in the mind because they can't be like lived out in reality. And it also shows a really strong sense of idealism. Like this wasn't what I set up. This wasn't why I incarnated. I didn't come here to do this. This wasn't how it was meant to be, because there is this very strong sense of idealism. And also in BB's chart, all of this is in the sign of Libra, which is about finding balance. So it's interesting that she's got, and they're all in a conjunction. So Mars and Saturn together, it's almost like the engines of her body. So Mars is like the fire, I guess, the fire that gets her going, the motivation, and then Saturn is kind of dampening it down. Now, if she was lucky with this, I mean, there may well have been a time when she could use her force and her vitality to use the structures of her life, because Saturn also represents the musculature, the ligaments, the skeleton, the sort of skeleto balance and structure. So things like using her muscles to work and to strengthen her core and everything could have been very, very useful. I would imagine that she'd have had quite an appetite for things like yoga and things like Tai Chi that used her muscles in such a way that was aligned and beautiful and graceful, because again, like Libra is beautiful and graceful. It all has to be done beautifully. Now, Mars and Saturn are also masculine signs, and they're in this very sort of feminine. I know, like Libra's an air sign, which is traditionally seen as a masculine sign, but I think of Libra as being a pretty little girl or a graceful woman. So it's interesting having these masculine planets almost they're almost effeminate, like she can't be strong, she can't find that structure. And then there's a little bit of a disconnect, and then there's this beautiful feminism that is so beautiful, Now, typically, Neptune is a masculine planet, but the way he is very, very feminine. You know, it's very fluid, it's very spiritual. It's not in black and white, it's in shades of gray. Anything goes. It's about creativity and creative expression and higher love. And there's Venus, which is all about love and flow. So she's got two very strong dynamics playing out in the sign of Libra in the sixth house. So I really wonder how that's impacted her health. And I don't really need to ask that many questions because we've also got Uranus here and Lilith in a conjunction in the sign of Cancer in the third house. So these two characters are in squares with many of these planets. So Uranus is shocks, trauma, a shift in consciousness. And the sign of Cancer can be about the mum, the family, a home or a place where we had trust. So it feels like there was, in her early environment, there was a betrayal of trust. It feels like there was a trauma around where she grew up. And Lilith was definitely there. So she felt a bit of suppression about how she was in her early environments, like early school, her early neighborhood, around her siblings and things like that. So it feels like where she is repressed, she feels shock, possible alienation from the mum. And it's quite possible that her mum or her maternal line are somehow shocking or leaving because again, Uranus shows where, especially in the sign of Cancer, it really shows where the mum is stronger. And I think if I was to do a show literally about the ages of Uranus, because it spends like 6, 7, 8 years in each sign, you know, it's slow, some more than others. You might find that, you know, at the time when Uranus was in the sign of Cancer, that it also coincided with the mums going back to work, the mums not being at home so much anymore. You know, it feels like a separation from all things to do with mums. And so I think this is actually playing into the situation that BB experiences in terms of her health. And it could be that around the age of 47, something occurred that felt quite traumatic, and it might not have been linked into the illness, but if you were to trace it back, there would be definitely some trauma linking it in, you know. And also we've also got Jupiter here in a conjunction with Eris. Now Eris, you know, I've already spoken about Lilith. Eris is even more peed off. Eris is the goddess of discord. She sows seeds of discord. You know, she just wants to hack everyone to pieces. She's so angry. She's absolutely angry for everything and just wants to take everyone out. She is the absolute bloody female, the female. But again, it's not just females, it's man. It's man too. It's that rage that disrespects every other living being. It's that rage that becomes so complete that you just want to take out everyone. And we've all got that in us. We all do somewhere, and some of us act on it and some of us don't. But I can see that there's some rage built up with Jupiter here, Jupiter in a conjunction. And so that brings up a lot of rage. And so I would imagine, given that Eris and Jupiter are also in a square to Uranus, so that's her early environment, her early school, her early neighborhood, her early friends, and her connection with her mum, because it's in the sign of Cancer. To me, it feels like there were some really big issues in your family in terms of holding back rage and resentment, and that there were some almost catastrophic energies being played out. And all it took was, you know, like Chiron, let's say over here, when Chiron went over here, it would have, if this was her mum, you know, you'd have had something triggering it, or it could be a dad, you know. But there's something familial in this, I would say. And then over here, we've got the other part of this setup, which is Chiron, which is the wounded healer and where we're sick. And she's also got Mercury in a conjunction with that. In the early degrees of Capricorn, it's in a square to Jupiter and Eris, showing that there is this feeling of like a sickening, and there's like so much energy and resentment and anger about the situation, whatever situation has occurred, and because it hasn't been properly released, it's probably just grown and grown and grown, and that is also feeding into the body almost stopping. So where I was saying this could be BB, her natural energy working with her natural structure, even though these two signs feel a bit feminized by the sign of Libra. But it's also showing that the wheels of creation almost grind to a halt. It's like there's so much anger that you don't know what to do with it, almost as if you might be saying, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do. And then something shows up in her life that stops her from actually doing it, like an illness where you can't do anything. So I really think there's something a much bigger dynamic going on there. And we've also got this dynamic too, which is currently playing out as well, which is the Ceres is currently in aspect with, the moon is in opposition to Pluto. We've also got Ceres in opposition to Vesta. The moon and Pluto is in opposition, is showing her beautiful, especially since she's in the sign of Pisces, her beautiful soul, which really does want harmony. It's very, very delicate, the moon in Pisces. It's very intelligent. It's deeply intuitive, deeply feeling, deeply psychic, deeply all-knowing. She would have sensed things as a small baby the whole time. And then it would appear that she has a very strong dominance stopping her from really being her true and dreamy self. And like this moon in Pisces, this hopeless optimist, this very, very delicate, fragile, beautiful. Like you can see it, when you see some children and they're just doe-eyed and they are just absolutely in love with the world. And you can see they're so, so innocent and meant to be a playful creator here. Very much like this beautiful Neptune and Venus. And these are also like linking up to the moon here as well. So she is absolutely really open and unboundaried in terms of her gifts. She may well have had to shut them down, which could have caused some anger. I imagine there would be people that didn't understand how doe-eyed this person was. And that sort of experience where someone that's an aggressor, somebody just wants to cancel or step or stand on somebody, they sometimes go for the complete innocent. It's almost like people, when they're in that state of anger or rage, they almost have to kill off the humanity in them. So I do think BB's probably had quite a run-in of abusive people who've seen her her as a delicacy, almost to feast on. They want to kind of take away that innocence. Bless her. She's so beautiful. And, she, again, is another sort of hint at her idealism with her Sagittarius sun and also her Juno in the sign of Sagittarius. She's absolutely idealistic in wanting a better world, in wanting to be in this beautiful utopia. And yet there's almost an equal and opposite energy that has been coming into her life as an enemy, whether it's been a real enemy, an invisible energy. There has been an energy in the world to say you are not safe to be your beautiful self. You've had to shut that down. Now, at the start, I said I was going to look at this from the perspective of how can we help BB feel more self-esteem and feel stronger. And actual fact, as I've seen this situation in her chart, I've just wanted to explain it. And that may not have helped her. So what I'm going to share here, I hope will. Like right now, she's got Jupiter. It's been going through her 12th house. It's not comfortable because Jupiter shows up the unconscious patterns. It really magnifies them. And Chiron is going through here as well. It's been here a long time, so she'll be used to that energy now. But as Jupiter comes over this point here, 12 degrees in the sign of Taurus, that's going to bring about a certain level of fortitude coming into her life. And and her energy systems. I'm just going to see when that happens, because that will show when you're feeling immediately a bit stronger. And that's coming up next month, around about the 23rd of July. And then Jupiter's going to be in your first house. The first house is all about your body and all about Jupiter coming into your first house can show real strength. One thing I would say is if you have inflammation, and I do think inflammation is the root of a lot of things. And obviously, if you think of inflammation, we can be inflamed in our heart and our anger, and also in our physical, like in our cells and things. Where you've got inflammation, if you can remove as much of that as you can before Jupiter comes in, because Jupiter can exacerbate things like that. But it's about the feeling of goodwill and that feeling of optimism, that feeling of hope. So I do think that feeling of hope is coming back very, very soon. Uranus in the first house is really showing that you're due for a break. You're due for a change in consciousness that will give you what you need to be able to let go of all of the patterns that I think may have pulled you down or almost been impossible to separate yourself from. The new moon has occurred in your second house. So this is quite helpful to know about. And it's in opposition to Juno and also Mercury and Chiron in your chart. And what that hints at is that there's a new way for a bit of extra resource to come to you. And you may well have an idea as to what you may be able to offer. It's also about you feeling a greater sense of self-value. There is a start. There is this way. Maybe you just need to be heard. Maybe you need to be seen. Maybe you need to be understood. But it's important to recognize who you are. The only person that can raise your self-esteem, sadly, is you. Like, we can't wave a magic wand. We all have to do that work ourselves, and it's really hard because we have to almost hold that faith, even though there's old stories playing in our minds of where that's not true. Now it's triggering, I think, a release of some of these old patterns and commitments that you've made. So, for instance, your commitment to Juno, which is higher love, it might be that you've committed to a relationship, an idea of a relationship, a person, but it might also be, and this is actually more insidious, so watch out for this one, but you may have committed, but like been absolutely committed to ideas that you somehow deserved treatment in a certain way, or that the people doing things around you were just doing their absolute best, but not in a way that was really enlivening, not in a way that could necessarily help you. What I see is happening is the old values that other people have held for you, you've bought into them. So like when someone says, "Oh, BB, you've always been like this," or "Oh, BB, blah, 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 blah," it just feels like you were committed to holding on to those opinions at some deep level, even though you knew they weren't true. You almost couldn't not do that. And it's almost like you've been gaslit, and that that you've been protecting people or not being able to see a situation as it was. And so what this new phase that you're going into is representing right now is the integration of whatever darkness has occurred. It's like an integration between the darkness and then the beautiful innocence that you represent. It's almost to say that actually, yes, this stuff has happened, and it's okay to look it in the face and integrate it into you. As if you see things as being outside of yourself, or that things have happened to you and someone else has perpetrated it to you, it stops you from having the power to completely heal it. Whilst it's helpful to somehow see what somebody has done and the fact of it, it's the judgment of it, I think, that's difficult. It's almost like there is a change that you can start to see it as information, and recognize that when we judge something as good or bad, it's very difficult to integrate it into your life. So what I'm seeing is that there's an integration of the bits that you almost couldn't love, or the bits of your life that you couldn't really agree with, or you couldn't really commit, like you were holding them, you were committed to holding them as bad things. And it's almost like, as you just see that this happened, but taking away the badness of it, taking away the judgment of it, it's then easier for you to own all those parts of your life, not from the place of this has happened to me, but this is just the story, and my story is ongoing. It takes away some of the pain. It's almost like, instead of referring to my illness, you're referring to it as, there was a time when I was ill. So the difference between, I heard it explained really beautifully on a healing video, and I'll send you a clip to it. Actually, it was very good, with Marissa Peer. And she said, when people refer to my cancer, as opposed to the cancer, they're really, really bought into it. And if you don't see the difference, then notice what happens if you hear your husband refer to you as the wife rather than my wife. So I really see that what's going on for you right now is a release in the way that you're seeing things, and that you can see what's happened factually and not judge it. And it's like, as the judgment disappears, it's easier to kind of own the whole life. Because, when we think about being whole and healed, like a healed person or a healed body, it's wholesome, isn't it? There's not part of it, it all works, like everything's balanced. And obviously I'm not a doctor, and yet I do feel that I have a kind of intuitive understanding of how things might play out, and how our emotions really play into our health. I also, hands up, will say I've had some of these so-called autoimmune disorders, which I was told I would never release, and I've lived without them for many, many years now, decades. So things can change, and when we're told something by somebody in a white coat, we believe that to be the truth, and then that truth starts to be, in fact, in the same video, I'll send you a link to it. In fact, I'm going to put it in the show notes because it's such a good video about healing. But Marissa Peer said, your only job when you get a diagnosis is to decide not to, I can't remember how she said it, but it's like, you have to decide. The doctor doesn't decide for you what your odds are. You decide. If he says you've got a 5% chance of surviving or something, or if he gives you something like that, believe you're in the 5%. So I do see that your situation is going to turn around. Pluto, by the way, over the last few years, it probably was pretty difficult. And I would say over the COVID years, I imagine that was really quite difficult for you, where you could feel this sense of gaslighting and manipulation. Pluto shows where things are manipulative, and it's right at the top of your chart. But now Pluto has moved a certain bit away. I would say this next period of your life is about you empowering yourself. And I absolutely believe that it's never, ever too late. So yes, you got ill at 47 and you're 71 now. And sure, your body might change in those years. I know my body has changed. I'm actually 48 at the moment, and I've seen a decline or a change in my life, and the way my body works. So, we are aging, and yet we can still make a difference and make a change in our life. Saturn as well is in quite a sensitive position for you right now. And whilst I was emphasizing how Saturn was playing out with Mary's chart, I can see with your chart, when Saturn was here and moving over this, he would have gone into opposition with your Pluto, then into your, over your moon, then over your North Node. You've had a bit of a Saturn crisis for quite some time now. So even though he's in this area, I don't see it as being an ongoing assault. I actually see the recent traumas over the last few years as being all the information that you needed. It gave you everything you needed to be able to resolve some of these things. So I'm going to leave that there anyway. I'm just going to check out the chat room and see what's come up. And then I think I'm going to call it quits and go to bed. So I've heard a couple of things from BB Jones. So she said, I've had several doctors tell me I'm a train wreck. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. You know, like we are taught to believe from an early age everything that our doctors tell us and what teachers tell us, what police officers tell us, what the government tells us. Any, you know, all these white coaters, lawyers, whatever, anyone that's in a position of authority, we're told to suspend our level of disbelief or suspend our we're meant to suspend our judgments and suspend how we can critically look at things. And so if you hear that you're a train wreck and you hear it from several doctors, your internal gaslit situation, like, you know, the fact that you may well have already been told these things, that will become your belief. That really will become your belief. And in fact, I am definitely going to share this video because they say that in this video that you absolutely need to believe in the miracle of healing. They actually cite a scientific experiment where soldiers or people that had a particular knee injury that there was an operation for, and it had a small success rate. And I think this knee operation was delivered out to a certain control group of men that needed their knees repairing, and half of them actually had it and the other half didn't. They were just told that they were going to have the operation, and they went down, they were given anesthetic, and they were given a little wound just so that they felt like they'd had their knee operated on. And it proved that actually the operation itself wasn't the thing that led to the success. It's the belief that they had it. The belief is the most important thing. So yes, I think, and there's, you know, my husband says, doctors give you what you need to distract you while your body is doing the healing. Now, I'm not saying doctors aren't useful. Absolutely not. And if I ever get ill enough that I need a doctor, I will, you know, that I can't work it out myself, I will absolutely take medical help. And obviously, if I'm in an accident, I definitely want to be in the safest hands, which are people who can operate if needed or fix bones and things. But I think there's a trick missed, and that is in dealing with trauma first, that can cause dis-ease, and getting ourselves right in ourselves and our belief. And I think for at least 4 generations, we've been taught that we can't be healthy. We need doctors to be healthy. We need drugs to be healthy. We need vaccines to be healthy. I'm not sure that's entirely true. And I spent a lot of my time researching it. So that's not to say that is true, but that's true in my experience. So I absolutely love that you can see where you've been told one thing. Let's see what else you said. Thank you so much. You're 100% correct on everything. You said, I used to go to the gym and work out, and I also danced a lot. Well, that really fits in, you know, with the strength and that movement, you know, like the movement of your body. And then you said, last of all, I don't pay any attention to doctors. When they tell me that, I think to myself that they just aren't smart enough to know how to be a healer and find the cause. One thing that I absolutely love, and BB, I've done a couple of shows on my other channel called the Barefoot Broadcast. I've done a couple of shows with somebody called Robert Jardine, and he uses the principles of German New Medicine to explore trauma and how we can resolve things. It's really deep acting work, but you might find some of those interviews helpful. Yeah, I'm really, really sure from what I've seen today that things have got sufficiently well illustrated to help you find your own resolution. So that's where I'm going to leave it. So anyway, that was quite a mammoth session. So I'm going to hop off now and actually go to bed. I'm quite tired. I'm quite exhausted. I've been working quite hard. And I think, you know, healing yourself after illness is really important. So I need a bit of rest. So anyway, I wish you a great rest of day, a great week ahead. Thank you so much for joining me today. And if I can be of any further use, if I can help you in any way, then just give me a shout. But anyway, lots of love. Bye for now.